when we think about network traffic, most of us picture speed, reliability, or security. But there is another critical dimension: cost. For service providers, understanding the financial impact of every gigabyte that moves across the network can mean the difference between healthy margins and painful loss. Today we have with us Jezzibell Gilmore, GM of Service Provider at Kentik, to talk about their new traffic cost feature, an industry first that brings financial visibility into network observability. We will explore what it means for operators, finance teams, and ultimately the bottom line. Jezzibell, it's great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Swapnil.
It's my pleasure. And today, of course, we are going to talk about a new feature, traffic cost. But before we talk about this new feature, I would love to talk a bit about yourself. Can you talk about your own background and what got you into this space and what got you into Kentik?
I've been in the industry for quite a long time, and I started when, internet was just becoming a known thing back in the late 90s. And I joined a small company called AboveNet Communications that were pioneers in both networking and co-location data center space. So I got obsessed and addicted to startups in technology. And I learned that the internet was democratizing knowledge and making it available for access in all corners of the earth. And I thought, what more noble activity could one invest themselves in than that? So that's how I joined the industry, and that's how I became a part of the industry. I've done so many different things in the networking industry. I've been on the operation engineering side. I've been in the marketing teams, and I've definitely been on the leadership side, driving the P&L of the entire business. And I found that to be this community itself to be such a welcoming and non-judgmental place, and everybody's trying to get together to make a difference for the world. And so I'm here, and what drew me to Kentik is really my passion for data and for optimization, and to leverage real data and insight to actually improve the efficiency of how a network or anyone with a network can operate their business.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. You have seen so much in the networking space. The space itself has evolved after the whole arrival of cloud native. Earlier, it used to be different silos. Now things are, with the whole DevOps movement, things are coming together, but there are still, different, I call them soft silos, because this is less to do with creating silos, about expertise. Now, when we talk about networking, Kentik is very well known for network observability. We talk about observability in general. For those who may not be aware of network observability, looking at your own career, how would you explain it? And if you can also historically, how people used to do things, what was the need of network observability, and where we are now?
Kentik started in the, we called it ourselves the network observability platform, right? And to me, that always had indication where, you can always take it as you can see, but you can't touch, right? But truly, I think that Kentik as a platform have so much more impact and is so much more insightful. Most providers, especially service providers, right? That's the area that I focus on, lack the clear visibility into where their traffic is going, what is driving the traffic going from where and on which path, and how is it getting from one place to another. Every company, no matter what it is that you're trying to do, focus on three key elements of success: performance, reliability, and cost. Right? It's three fundamental attributes to your success. And to me, Kentik, with your existing data that your network generates, can give you visibility into how to improve all three elements. And most people today actually want to improve all three, but most people can only improve two. And that's because most people make decisions based on what is the appearance and the emotional reactions that they have, not on the pure data and the insight it generates. And Kentik can combine a lot of different types, various sources of data to help you come to a conclusion through aggregation and correlation of all that data.
Now it's perfect time to talk about the news, which is announcement of traffic cost. When I was going through all the resource material, you folks call it industries first. So first of all, talk a bit about what is traffic cost and what exactly does it do? What does it unlock for customers?
So traffic cost, right? It's a very interesting topic because for so many networks, and you'd think for in business and operating for so long, how is it that nobody has really mastered the actual underlying cost of their network? Well, that's because there's incredible complexity. There's billing complexity. There's data fragmentation. There's the actual global variability and the system of ownership, right? So I'll go dive in. Billing complexity. Your service provider, you buy network services from, provides you an invoice. The way they come to a conclusion on how you're going to be billed and what the metric that they base their billing on could be different from the next one and from the next one. You know, for anybody who's in the business, there's flat fee, there's 95th percentile, there's tiered rates, there's commitment based, and there's burst, there's overage. You know, I can go on and on. And I think you're probably tired just hearing me talking about the few things off the top of my head. Imagine that if you're in the finance team and trying to come up with a way that how to come to an average per unit rate on delivering the traffic for a particular customer who's stretched out across multiple global regions and utilizing multiple underlying service providers that composes your network. And then there's the system of ownership, right? We'll talk about a couple of these big pieces. You can own the network, and so you know where the traffic is going and how much traffic is going through from each service provider, but you don't own the finance piece. So you don't know how much each service provider is charging you. So it's very difficult for you to tell by mixing up all of this, what is actual cost. You don't know the contractual terms because the legal team or the business team own that. And then you also don't own the customer piece, right? You don't know exactly which customer is utilizing what. So you can, by the time you aggregate all of these different systems, and they all have different metrics in how they look at the traffic and the data and the price, for you to be able to tell how much a single customer is costing you in any particular region or globally on a global basis, or that, how much does it cost for me to operate this region for all of my customers? Well, how much does this underlying service provider is worth to my business? Because my customers are paying me this. How much of my customers' business actually have to traverse through this particular network for me to operate? If I don't have this network, how do I get to the destinations that I need to get to? And how much would it cost me if I don't have a direct relationship with this particular network? All of that are super complex, and it's difficult for any individual to come up with all of that data, compile all of that data, and create analysis, especially in real time. Imagine if you're a business leader and you want to understand because you're in a contract negotiation, business negotiations with a customer, a prospect. You want to know how much you can price your service at in an intelligent fashion, not because your competitor is pricing it at this, or that your underlying general cost is about this, right? You want to know what is the right way for you to price the actual service. Then you need real data to support that decision, to support that business analysis. And that is what Kentik's traffic cost capability can bring you by region, by ASN, by network, by customer, by geography, by groups of ASN, and by traffic path, right? So I want to know from here to there, how much is it costing me to move traffic from here to there? It doesn't matter which customer. I just want to understand, should I be doing business in these two regions? And should I be moving somewhere different to save money, to increase performance, to increase reliability? And or if I were to take away a particular underlying service provider, how much does that impact my reliability or performance? Or does it have any impact at all?
Excellent. And that gives a lot of control to customers, a very fine grade granular control. Before this feature, how were network and finance team typically used to calculate the cost of all this traffic? Was it spreadsheets? Was it manual guesswork? Or was it something else? And how is this feature making their lives so much easier?
Well, I can't tell you how everyone else is doing it, but let me tell you how I did it when I ran a network. I went to my CFO and I said, hey, can you show me how much it's costing us to run our network? He went to his finance team and have the team pull out all of the invoices for the last 6 months, and they put it in spreadsheets. And so that, we can have all that data. But it's very difficult to load line item because, the invoices can be sometimes multi-tens pages long with all the different things that's on it. And it's very difficult, which is at the beginning, which said to decipher how one service provider calculates traffic cost than the next. So in order to put them all together, you can have an overall cost, but it's very difficult to tell, right? What is per megabyte by pricing. And then I went to the engineering team. I said, hey, would you guys please help me figure out how to show how much traffic it's costing, how much is it costing us to operate in these regions, with all the different service providers and all the underlying colo spaces, the hardware, the cross connects, the adding of the ports and all of that. And they said, sure, we're kind of not as busy right now, so it's only going to take us about 6 months to put that together. Okay, so, and guess what? Things change in those 6 months because everybody's moving super fast, right? So, and my question is, 6 months? Well, aren't you guys adding POPs? And they said, yeah, we are. But because of that, so that's why we can't give you some of the cost because we're changing the underlying routes. In fact, the business is changing all the time. So at any given point, I like to have real-time data to understand how I can see, what's costing me here and there. And I think that is the challenge for almost all senior leaders in a business. To have that visibility in real time is very difficult because the data come from so many different discerned sources and that they are not all measured on the same metric. So that in order to correlate that data, it becomes a huge hassle right? You have to normalize the data to the way that you want to see it. In fact, I was actually talking to someone earlier yesterday, and they were talking about how they're going to feed data, agentic AI data to LLM. And they were talking about how the technology data that the agents that absorb are different than natural language, because natural language isn't technology language, and all technology languages are different. So it's similar to that in the fact that, how everyone looks at billing differently, how everybody looks at their network differently. And by the time all the different hardware pieces speak different language, and by the time you get them all together, it becomes very much more complex than you'd want to see. And then the data you get is out of date by the time it gets to you. So, and Kentik is leveraging our ability to access a lot of that existing data already. We're in the network intelligence platform where we're doing observability. The intelligence itself already resides within the platform, and we're just leveraging all of that existing data to pull it together for the analytics. And therefore, a lot of the data that seems to not really have a lot of relation to each other, to the different teams that are operating them, now becomes extremely valuable to the leaders of the business, because they can make much better business decisions.
How do you see after this announcement, network and finance teams will work together differently as they used to work in past, given this level of visibility into traffic cost? How will the way teams work will also change? Because sometimes we talk a lot about culture, right? Hey, we have to bring right culture. Sometimes these tools become catalysts to bring that very cultural change that we want to see.
You ask such a great question. It's sometimes the culture that's stopping the innovation. It's not the lack of technologies, because, as we were just talking about, the technologies exist. All the different systems are there. The data's there, but how you get them together and make sense of it is the difficult part, right? So, I'm not even sure that I'm answering your question, but I think having the ability to pull all of this data and utilizing it, all the data, to analyze it and put out the outcome for better decision making will fundamentally change the way that service providers do business. Because now, in addition to how to save money, how to operate their networks more effectively, they can make better decisions on customer adoption. Should we go after this customer? How much are their traffic costing us? Are we pricing the services that we're offering at the right level? And who should we be going after? What are these types of customers more beneficial for our business? By pricing at this level, do we attract this type of customers who are more strategic? And because they are on our network, so their content or their traffic is attracting these other types of customers who are more profitable for us, how can we be more strategic as a company, an enterprise? And all of that are driven from data, and that can easily be provided through the Kentik platform.
The service is live, but sometimes you do run a lot of pilot. You work with a lot of partners before things are released in public. Can you give an example of how a service provider might use this to improve margins or to make smarter business decisions as well?
How do they improve their margins? That's actually a really easy question for me to answer. I love that. So by looking at their peering data from a service provider, they can see that if they are peered through, they're not peered with a particular destination where one of their customer or multiple of their customers are sending a lot of traffic, and that the traffic is traversing through, say, a transit provider that they have to pay for. So then they can reach out to the destination um, and ask if they can peer directly, whether through an internet exchange or through a PNI, and establish that connection. Then all of a sudden that they are able to deliver that traffic directly to the destination without cost, right? So, or without, with reduced cost. So then that they can start saving money. So that's the cost reduction piece in one way. A different way that you can reduce cost is to see how you're reaching, again, particular set of destinations. And if you realize that that particular set of destinations are largely supported through someone that you can have a private interconnection with, and then a smaller extra piece of the service can be served by a transit provider at a low cost. And through that endeavor, now you can actually dismantle your public peering presence, which is costing you both from the port perspective, the membership perspective, as well as the cross connect. So different strategies works for different people. And or if you run a very large network and you realize that you are moving traffic between 2 points of presence over transit provider and peering. So it's giving you not only slightly higher cost, but less optimized performance. And that large amount of traffic are only traversing between those 2 points. Now you can potentially get transport, right? Whether it's wavelength or dark fiber, you can now build your own transport between those two locations for better performance and lower cost, and have the traffic distributed regionally on your own network to those partners, peers, or transit to reduce cost.
What kind of long-term impact you will see of this feature, where you see that this will also change how providers think about their overall pricing models or customer relationship and experience as well?
Absolutely. And I think many companies in our industry, in the networking service provider industry, are shifting towards a customer first model, right? And they're rightly so. Kentik is a customer first company. If you're bringing value to your customers, not only that they will stay loyal, but they will continue to build their business with you. Help your customers build success. What we want to help our customers do is not just to figure out how to get bigger margin, but how to expand their business, how to grow their businesses with their customers through the deep understanding, through the data, the traffic flow of their networks and their business. They can now figure out where the customers are having demands and how they can drive additional business, build ahead of those demands for those customers, partner with other networks to allow them to reach faster before they can build themselves. And also to look at higher margin business and start focusing more strategically on those and build the lower margin business as the foundations to drive the higher margin business, right? What's necessary to have the higher margin business? And if it means that we must have the lower business margin business, we'll use someone, we can say, a large CDN. CDN is a business that's almost margin neutral these days. However, if you have a large customer base that are utilizing your CDN, we'll look at Cloudflare, right? But what they've built on top of that is security services, cyber services, additional value add services to a great foundation. And I think we can help many of our service provider customers to do that.
After listening to Jezzibell, it's quite clear that traffic costs aren't just about network performance, they are directly tied to business health and profitability. Jezzibell, thank you so much for joining us and walk us through your own journey and walk us through what it means for the industry. Thank you for your time today, and I look forward to the next discussion.
Swapnil, it's a pleasure. And you asked some both great and difficult questions. And I love being on your show. Thank you so much.
For those watching, if your company is tackling challenges at the intersection of networks and business strategy, we'd love to hear your story as well. So don't hesitate and reach out to your teams. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and stay tuned for more conversations.